Chronometry calibrated. The gateway will open in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Analyzing data. Likelihood of parallel universes now at 20%. Continuing analysis of the many worlds hypothesis.
Remember this. Remember this moment. This perfect night. You think I'm crazy? Yes, I am. Podcasting is not for the sane. Look at us. Unlistened, unwatched, content fodder. We'll all be dead before the next Star Wars movie is out, and yet, here we are. We're the Rhino Kid. We're the fuel. We're the thing that explodes when there's too much friction in the air. Let it in, boy. That's freedom calling. Let it in. Let it run. Let it run wild. Welcome, everyone. I'm Gayfish. Joining me, as always, is the lovely Moss.
Hello.
And DemonMama.
Hello! It's burning!
It's burning, indeed. Listen, I cannot condone the huffing of fictional gasoline alternatives, but I do enjoy watching it. So today we're going to be continuing our discussion of Andor Season 2, Episodes 4 through 6, the second arc. And how did everyone like this one?
Awesome. I love it.
I felt like it was a little bit less compelling than the previous ones, but I also just feel like season 2 in general is slightly less compelling than season 1, and this just might be like the part of the show that makes me feel that way.
Well, it's kind of like the part where, okay, things are going in motion, but there's no we're in the middle of the season, so obviously there's no major conclusions. There's character arcs that go through it and stuff.
Yeah.
But they're establishing Gorman, building things up a little bit, but really the back half of the season is very heavy. So
yeah, this is setup stuff that we're doing right now.
Yeah.
In some ways, yes. But I also do think there are some very concrete topics that are sort of resolved in this particular arc. And I will say the first time I watched through, I didn't catch on to them as much, mostly because I felt like I was kind of still watching the way the first season was structured, and this second viewing of the season for this show, I feel like I'm picking up even more than the first time. But yeah, I guess we'll get into that in a minute, about what I think is going on there. I really, really like this set of episodes. I think it has a lot to say about the vision that Andor, the statement that Andor has to say about politics that carries through both seasons. The thing that I guess I want to jump on first is through all of these 3 episodes and through this season as a whole, but specifically in these episodes, there is a conversation about leadership and about humanity in revolution.
Yeah.
The thing that I think that this season does so well is it carries forward the tradition of exploring different perspectives on basically revolutionary politics. But this is a different spot than the first season. The first season is basically what are each person's what do they think their method of change is? Whereas in this season, it's it digs down and drills down a little more to what are your tactics? How do you actually operate? And so in this one, we get to see the Saw Gerrera style, the Mon Mothma style, and most importantly, we see the difference between Luthen and Andor.
Yeah.
And we get to witness for perhaps one of the first times in the series since the end of the first series, a moment where Luthen is wrong, basically, and has to rethink his own approach. We see it happen basically twice in one episode, though one is more subtle than the other. We see Luthen is basically he's wrong in the way that he approaches his conflict with Clea. And then we see that he has to go and make a change to the way that he is approaching Andor and Bix.
Yeah.
And ultimately, this is something I didn't really catch the first time through, but that we see him give a concession to both of them and basically go back on what he was architecting, which was splitting them apart. You know what I mean? To make them both more effective apart.
Yeah. I will say that I have some issues with the way that Bix's arc was handled in this 3-episode thing. Obviously, PTSD is a long-term thing that that's she's still going to deal with through the rest of the series. But this episode does give her that bit of catharsis in that she gets revenge on Gorst and makes sure he can never do it to anyone again, and leaves him with a taste of his own medicine before blowing him to hell. But I feel like because we don't actually see like that mission as like the focal point, it just shows up as like a surprise at the end of the arc. Like, oh shit, she got revenge. It's like, it's not as much catharsis. You like I struggle to believe how easy it was for her to get into that room with Gorst.
Yeah.
I want to know how that was played out. I want to see Bix given more actual active action rather than spending, like, I get it. Trust me, I understand the whole, staying around at home and abusing drugs because you can't deal with the horrors. I get that. That is very relatable. But also, in so doing, it's like, is that the focus of her story? And then the actual, going out there and doing something just kind of is just like tacked on at the end. I don't know. That didn't feel satisfying to me.
It's like weird how much Bix we have this season versus like how much she actually does or changes or anything. Like, I really don't like her this season, and I'm trying to figure out why. And I think it's because like they gave her a lot of screen time, but there's not much substance to her, or like they're like on a surface level, like touching on like, yeah, okay, she's got these PTSD things. But yeah, like you're saying, I'm like, what happened? How did she do that? How did she accomplish that? Let's show her being effective at something. Because what I'm seeing is like a dysfunctional person who suddenly pulls off something that feels kind of insane because he is in the ISB. Like, okay, so how did she infiltrate? Like what? I don't know. I just feel like there is so little to her right now.
There was that line that Gorst was being taken out away from the ISB and was getting his own office set up to because he was so useful that like they were like coordinating with the Imperial Navy and stuff like that. It was but that was intel that Lonnie passed to Luthen, and that's why Luthen was able to send it to them. And also that was probably intel that was safe for Lonnie to pass on and them for the act on, because with him working also with the Imperial Navy, well, they're certainly not as tight with intel control as the ISB would be.
Sure, yeah.
So the attack on Gorst makes sense. There's enough set up there. It's just not as satisfying as it could have been if we saw her take an episode to do this and see her struggle through her anxieties and her trauma to actually pull it off. Rather, I want to
see her get her shit together. Yeah.
Yes. I agree.
I partially agree and partially disagree with what's been said about this, because on one hand, I do think that the communication of like this particular event with regard to the greater lore is like notably underdeveloped to the rest of the stuff that happens in this season, or at least to most of it. I mentioned in the last one that there seems to be some areas of this season where it's like, okay, the compression of this originally being 4 more seasons to down to 1 final season, like it shows through. And I think a moment like this is kind of like that, where
it gets yada for the
yada a little. But on the other hand, I don't think I agree that like Bix is not like, I can't remember what you said, Moss, something approximating that Bix is not like deep enough or like given enough room. I think Bix, I think Bix's arc in this season is like really amazing. And also like, I think that her position in this is basically saying like, part of why I'm suffering is because I'm being condescended to. And yes, my shit is not together, but neither is Luthen's. Like Luthen is visibly
losing it.
He's losing his shit. He doesn't have his shit together either. The only difference is that he has a lot more to pull on to like cope, and Bix just has like is like locked in a horrific apartment. So then like the resolution of this episode is Andor breaking all protocol and going and confronting Luthen and being like, you don't understand. If you want all of me, you have to include all of me. You want my blood? You can't just cut me away from the people I care about. I did this for a reason. The reason I fight is for the people I care about. And of course, as the season goes on, we see that that is also Luthen's motivation, but that he has begun to lose touch with some of it in the chaos and the suffering. And, it's a very compassionate portrayal of Luthen, but nonetheless, we see his flaws. And so in this, I see him like going, okay, we got this intel from Lonnie. I'm going to give it to them. Like, I need to do this. It's maybe not the best, like, it's maybe not perfect protocol, but it's what they both need. And so we see, Bix able to come into her own, take care of this monster who's literally going to be expanded to do this to more people. It's not just revenge. It's like, this is the cause. The cause is this person having a reason to wanting to stop this person. And I like that aspect of it. And I do think that I don't know. I'm surprised you say you don't like Bix, but it's a beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I suppose. I find Bix like, I love her character this season. I think that it's so understandable that like the feelings of like, well, I don't know like where I stand. I'm not on the same like level of just sheer military thievery competence as Andor. I'm not on the same level of like leadership plugged in as Luthen, but I am committed to this cause. And I'm being killed because I'm not being allowed to participate. I'm being suffocated. Like, I don't know. I find that very understandable and interesting. And then to see her essentially successfully negotiate with the people in her life to find a place and to find a mission and to get the score is cool. I do agree, though, fundamentally, it could have used more room to breathe. And this is especially true after this episode, because we hit the time skip. No, sorry, little spoiler for the people who haven't watched the next episodes yet. But yeah, we're gonna get into that next time. This was something that really bothered my partner when we were watching this. Was just like, wait a minute, like they yada the reaction to that, like blowing up a federal navy or an imperial navy. Sorry, woo! An Imperial Navy base in the middle of the capital planet is like, it gets yada-yada'd a little much.
I will say, Adria Arjona, I really like her as an actress, and there's actually been like fan castings of her as the new Wonder Woman, and James Gunn did comment saying that she would be really good. That's not James Gunn saying he's casting her, but he has worked with her before, because she was in the Belko Experiment, which was a film he produced and wrote. So he does like to work with actors he's worked with before, and so that's a possibility.
Oh, that would be so cool.
I wanted to comment a little bit more on the whole Luthen coming to see Bix alone and then Cassian confronting Luthen. I knew basically from the start of the series that Luthen wasn't making it. For somebody this influential, who is a new character who we don't see
who's not in Rogue One.
who's not even in Rogue One, and is definitely not in the original trilogy like Mon Mothma is. He's not going to make it out of this alive. But the instant Bix opens the door and Luthen's there, I was like, Cassian's gonna do it. And I was so convinced. Now, spoilers for later stuff. I was wrong, but I was glad to be wrong, just because the way they do it is so well. But this arc was like, oh yeah, Cassian's gonna do it.
Yeah, it seemed like that's where like that was like where it could have gone very easily. But I think it's I know exactly where you're coming from, because I was worried about that as well. I was like, oh God. And we'll talk about the rest. I can't wait till we get to talk in full depth about Clea.
I love Clea.
Oh my God, I have so much to say about Clea, and
she has a fun arc. This bits too.
It's so politically important to this series' message, and I can't wait to talk about it. But that's for
before we do that. I want to touch on, because I just want to like focus on like the Bix Cassian relationship, and then like the Luthen and his perspective thing, and like I think what one of the core messages of this is, and it is articulated by Bix, is like this idea of the tension between, I mean, all of the characters talk about this to some extent. Like Cinta is part of this conversation with like, how does Mon Mothma feel about her family and her cousin and like all this. The tension between having personal relationships, which can get in the way of effectiveness of the cause, but that the cause exists inherently because of our love and connection with one another. And so you can't, this is Luthen's problem, is that he thinks that he can play couples off of each other and like separate them for a full year. Like Cinta and God, I can never remember her name.
Vel.
Vel. Yes. Thank you. They didn't see each other for a year, during which time Cinta was severely injured in some way.
I assume she crashed the thing that she was flying Tay on, and that's what the recovery was.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And what a bastard thing for Luthen to do. If Cinta's out of action, like she can't even do it, you fucking tell Vel so that when Vel is not on mission, she can go and visit her recuperating girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ, man.
It's a real, to your point, Moss, I'm remembering what I believe to be a very central thesis statement from the first season, which is Luthen's speech in which he says, "I'm cursed to use the tools of my enemies to defeat them."
Yeah.
Then there's this scene in this very arc where he says, think like a leader. You know what I mean? And it draws this idea that like there is a contradiction in this like act of dominance, of a devotion to pure victory, of a devotion to conquest. And unfortunately, because of the situation that they're in, they have to sometimes choose these things. And it's horrible. This episode arcs to me seems very interested in figuring out how people resolve that, and when it sometimes goes well and when it sometimes does not go well. We have a juxtaposition of the absolute worst end possible for Vel and Cinta and a much better end for Andor and Bix.
Still bittersweet, but
still, yeah, like they're still not together. Like, and that's part of what I think that this show has been about, is like the personal loss. But like the thing that really stuck out to me in this arc, like the dialogue that I actually quoted in my notes, is like Andor says, "I don't want to lose you again." And Bix says, "That's not up to us anymore. You can't protect me." And I think that goes to show what you were saying earlier about like her desire to be part of this fight and the fact that she's been excluded from it, that like once you decide to join a rebellion like this, like you don't necessarily have a say. Like there will be situations where someone like Luthen commands you to go somewhere knowing that that's making a sacrifice, or who will withhold intel,
where the Imperials get you.
It gets blown up. Yeah, or the Imperials get you. Like you're gambling every time, but that's the choice that you're making, is you're entering that space going, I'm willing to lose something. Like that is the whole point of being here. If I wasn't willing to lose something, I wouldn't be able to do this. So sometimes you have to let me lose that thing. You have to like let that thing happen in service to the greater cause. And like that is like the constant pull back and forth. And like what the statement ultimately is at the end sounds like, and like I'm going to speak vaguely so as not to spoil, it seems like the answer at the end of this season is that personal relationships are a liability that must be put aside in order for the effectiveness of Rogue One to happen. And it seems like a mixed message sometimes, where characters make different choices. Like Vel chooses Cinta over the effectiveness of the rebellion because that's for her the important thing, and it ends in tragedy for her. But I think it's because there's no right answer for anybody. We all have to make these different choices, and there is no right answer. Some people are not willing to lose what they have and they'll stay home. I think that there's different.
Yeah, I think I guess I would word it a little different. Not so much that personal relationships are a liability, but that they're an inevitability. And that the part of what is so reprehensible about empire and about imperial dominance politics, this constant need for control, is that it perpetually steals from us what actually matters to us and forces us to make inhuman decisions in order to survive. Because of course, like I can't help but look at how none of the people here are truly in an elective process. Bix especially is the one where it becomes most abundantly clear. Bix was literally just trying to make a living in one of the most difficult to live in places in the entire galaxy, and ended up through basically chance involved in a high level conspiracy, which ended with her getting tortured and then forced into undocumented migrant work, which then further got her persecuted. None of the people, and this goes all the way to even Andor at the very first season, first episode, his involvement was through coercion. And sure, he makes the decision to come to terms with it and be like, yes, I am a rebel now. But he doesn't really have much of a choice in getting to that place in the first hand. Marva talks about this a lot too, where it's like, well, it's everywhere. You can't run away to Niamos or wherever you want to go because it's going to be there too. And it was and is. I don't know that it's so much that personal relationships are a liability. I think that's more of like the imperial message that we see unfold through the ISB, where there is this like, you're here with your buddy. You're not allowed to have lovers. You're not allowed to, like, everyone's always undercutting each other because it's like you got to go for the greater goal. But instead, it's this imperial thing forces us into these positions, and we have sometimes no choice but to make a sacrifice that like is horrible. And we should recognize that that's a possibility and look at the bigger picture and hope that we can make a better world.
That's fair. I'll talk more about it when we get to the end of the season because I don't want to spoil too much. But I was going to say, I do think it's sad that Dedra and Hirt aren't friends anymore.
Yeah.
Like her little gay bestie who was like, so like, he was like, yeah, let's stay up late. I'm not leaving till you leave. And they were like best friends. And now he's like, fuck off, Dedra. I hate you. Like, so you're right that like
the fact he's like,
the erosion of relationships.
I got this job because I'm not seeking the glory.
Unlike you.
Yeah.
Like it was
they're two of a kind. Like they're reflections of each other in that way of like, but one of them is arguably a little more effective than the other one at like the actual, like, I don't know. It's like, it is funny that like we'll get into that at the end of the season. I don't want to go off on that tangent.
But like you're right that the Empire gets in the way of relationships. And I mean, like, there's no clearer example than Dedra and Cyril, who she is withholding information from him big time right now. And she's not just withholding information from him. She is using him in a plot that he does not know about.
Yeah, he just thinks, oh, we're just taking down an insurgency. This planet's fine. It's just the insurgency that's bad. Mm-hmm. He has absolutely no idea he's helping architect a genocide.
Yeah, she's coldly exploiting his imperial naivety. It's so evil. It is so disgusting and so real. The Empire is perpetually depicted as a force of extreme incompetency and inefficiency that believes that all that it is ever doing is efficiency and improving, that they're willing to destroy lives, places, ways of life. And they use any justification necessary to do so, because at the end of the day, it's an empire. It's whatever the fucking emperor wants. Whatever Palpatine wants, he's going to get. And they can come up with any justification to build anything. The show continually reinforces this. Whether it's, we're going to destroy the way of life of the Aldanis because, look, they're backwards and all this stuff. Meanwhile, it's like, yeah, they're like actively making their lives worse. Like they're like actively pushing drugs on them and disrupting their society, making it impossible for them to actually practice their way of life. And then they're like, oh, look at how, shambolic their society is. And it's like, well, you did that. You did that. They had like a vibrant way of life and you made it impossible for them. And now you're using that as justification to further just build a giant dam on their home.
That reminds me of a conversation I had with a coworker once about Haiti, where I was talking about how it was like one of the only countries that like was able to just by itself successfully rise up and overthrow, its slave owners. And his response was just to be like, yeah, well, look at them now. And I'm just like, yeah, why do you think that is? Do you think maybe it's because they're still in an area of the world that is constantly exploited, or diplomatic issues? Like
I don't know very much about it, but I know enough to know that that's a silly thing to say.
Like all you have to know is like, okay, you're talking about Latin America. I don't know. There's 3 letters you might have heard of called the CIA. Like, come on, man.
This case not even the CIA. It was just the reprisal from the entire Western world, including the French, where it's like, oh, you did a revolution. Well, we're going to make you and every generation following pay for it forever.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Didn't they like hold a debt against Haiti for like?
Yes.
Isn't that like still ongoing? Like they're still.
I believe it is. Yes.
And there's that like political cartoon that shows South America and Africa as like these scooped up pits and piles of rocks on North America and Europe. That like these places aren't impoverished and full of, backwards yokels. They have been exploited and
it's
robbed
not a
of the
naturally
resources.
Occurring thing.
Yeah.
It's a result of colonialism.
Yeah, imperial colonialism. Exactly.
Yeah.
And like with Gorman, if the calcite was something that could be extracted without destroying the planet, we would see that happen to Gorman. We would see that sort of exploitation happen where they're not orchestrating an active genocide. They'll just oppress them more and more and more and put their boot on them and change their economy from the twill to just turning them all into calcite miners.
Yeah.
It's funny too because Gorman serves such an interesting purpose this season. It's at once, no one is free from the effects of colonial imperialism. It's also a bit of the like what's used abroad comes back home. It's talking about that, and it takes it a little bit further to go so far as to be like, no, like this is just when all of a sudden, by pure chance, your house happens to be on top of a resource that the Empire needs. Of course they're going to do the same thing. Of course they're going to. And it's only a matter of chance that your house had to be destroyed in the process and couldn't just be, filled with poison gases like everywhere else that they do. Throughout all of Andor, we see all these different examples. I'm thinking immediately of the fishermen after Narkina 5. They get caught in those gooey nets.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, at first they think they're like, we're screwed, we're done. And then it's like, oh no, we hate Imperials. Like, you escaped from the prison, we'll give you a ride home. Because they're like, yeah, they killed all our fish. The hydroelectric power for all of those, like Narkina 5 and the other Narkinas, were like, oh, it's killing all of our fish. We can't get anything anymore. And it's like, you just see how every part of the galaxy ends up being affected by this stuff. Exactly like you were saying, like scooping it out. It's just a disgusting process. And Andor repeatedly demonstrates this on every different type of society. Gorman is the first that we've seen of a society that is like otherwise extremely well off and like culturally established as like imperial pride almost. You know what I mean? It's German, France, Italy. And you go, oh, well, but they're upstanding imperial citizens. They even, you see the representative like voting for the PORD because he's like, I can't do anything else. They're going to kill us.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it doesn't matter. If you are standing between the Empire and what it wants, it does not matter who you are. They will find an excuse.
I do think it's interesting, though, that like we in microcosm are shown that the Empire's control is only like prescient when they're exerting it. In the unraveling of Dedra's conquest of Cyril's mom, because in the first 3 episodes, obviously, like that's like our little somebody succeeded at the end of their arc in the first arc. Dedra's like, yeah, stop being such a bitch to my boyfriend. But then when she's not there, immediately
just back to it. Yeah.
Immediately back to it. So like the desire for control, and her particularly, like obviously her desire for dominance and control is like the example, but it represents imperial control and dominance where they just can't maintain it. They have to physically be there, constantly enforcing the rules. And as soon as they leave, like nature starts to re-exert itself, where the manifesto asserts that like a little bit of chaos and freedom are natural and control is unnatural.
There's also an intentional part to the resuming of Edie's like prior relationship with Cyril, because they know that the Gorman Front is tapping his line and monitoring those conversations. And so it is better suited to Dedra's ultimate goal of the genocide for them to hear Cyril arguing with his awful mother rather than having a more cordial relationship. So the thing that she negotiated that promised, well, that goes out the window because it's better for her purposes if that resumes.
Yeah, for Cyril to just lie when he's on the phone with her. Like, yeah. Oh, no, these are good people, Mom. You're listening to propaganda.
The thing is...
Spinning a web, you might say.
That's the thing, though. I don't think he's lying to her.
I think it's hard to say with him because...
It's super hard to say, yeah.
He is there specifically to seek out a resistance front that because he generally believes in the Empire, but he's also living there among Gormans, and he sees that they're no threat. I truly believe him when he says that these people are no threat, because he sees it. And as we'll see in the next arc, when he realizes what's being done, he's just like, yeah, no, this is not, this was not what I was here for. So
Yeah.
I don't think that he's lying to her. I think Cyril actually, honestly, just based on his performance in the first season, I don't think he's competent enough to maintain that lie.
It's hard to tell with it, because I think that there is like an element of role playing in all that he does.
Mm-hmm.
And yet at the same time, there is a part, like, he's a very conflicted, and frankly, he's a bit of a pathetic character, in the sense that, like, we see how listless and directionless he really is. And then his like, he feels this like zealotry, this like energy to do something, but he doesn't have the moral courage or the tools to actually have a belief system. And it's again, like I always, especially in the first season, he is the mirror of Andor. He is what Andor could have become if many things were different. He's a person who has great energy, who can apply it very well, but who lacks the moral courage and the independence to like do that. And so it's hard to tell with him. You never know what's really true. And we see, obviously there's a bridge too far moment for him, which we're going to get to, and I can't wait to talk about as well. But there is a bridge too far moment with him. But you never know, because the whole way up, he's feeding this information to people, and you don't know if he's just blah blahing with his mom, because he does that all the time. We see in his home life, he's just like, yeah, whatever, mother. Like, he's such a hollowed out person as a result of the way that he lives his life, and yet he still feels such idealism towards the Empire, because he still buys into so much of its promise. It's very naive and, again, like, pathetic in a certain way.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing about fascism, is like, to a certain demographic, it's a promise of safety and protection at the expense of certain outgroups, of course. But like, that's why you can get white America to sign off on fascism, is by being like, well, this is about my kids and my neighborhood and my groceries. Like, yeah, people don't think about it beyond that. And I wonder sometimes, like, how much we can really expect them to think much further beyond that. Like, is it a personal moral failing of Cyril or of Dedra? Or is it just like they had no other choice in their circumstances?
Well, and I should also point out, like, particularly with Gorman, because they are a wealthy society. Now, they are obviously very dependent because they are a single industry economy. Single export economy. So they are very dependent on trade and good relations with the rest of the galaxy to maintain things. And that's, I think, ultimately why the Gorman front was doomed to fail to begin with. There's the line that Luthen says to Cassian: think about the Empire choking Gorman so hard that even Caro Rylands gets off his comfortable ass to do something about it. It also kind of makes me think of the people who say that we will never see a revolution in the United States because Americans are so comfortable. And like, there's a definite truth in that, but I think that truth is getting quickly eroded, because part of the reason that we haven't seen any kind of uprising like that is because for a long time there was a concerted effort to maintain the middle class, because the middle class is like one of the greatest inventions of the capitalist system, of creating people who are just comfortable enough that they will accept the bad situation that they're in.
Yeah.
And then they won't learn the tools that they need to overthrow it. They won't feel uncomfortable enough. They have too much to lose to overthrow it. And I think we see what happens to a society once there's quickly a tipping point, and they have not had the time and the tools necessary to fight it, to mount a sufficient insurgency, and yeah, we'll ultimately see that, the Gorman front, the Gorman front, we see how bad they are, in that the first act we see them do is take in an Imperial spy. And then when Cassian goes in as the fashion designer, he like immediately calls out Varian Sky, which he was incredibly handsome. Great swag. But he calls him out right. I was like, you don't know who I am. I am who you hoped I would be, but that's just you being lucky. You guys are not ready for this shit.
Yeah. Like for her to start the conversation, like, "Hey, you're Varian Sky, right?" And for him to be like, "Yes, that's me." Like that could be anybody. You know, you've made a critical error right out the gate there. Yeah, they're so vivacious and enthusiastic about it, and there's a lot of things that it shows that they are not very good at, like respecting a chain of command and like being exactly where you're supposed to be at exactly the right time.
That fucking
Like,
piece of shit that
Yeah.
brought the blaster when Vel specifically said that Vel and Cinta are the only ones with blasters, and it's like
Yeah.
that guy who was so fucking eager and pulled his gun not even on an enemy, just on a belligerent ally.
Levine of all people. God.
Yeah, no, it was just, oh god. And then also, like, we talked a lot about relationships, but I do have to bring it back that we did get a bury your gaze moment here.
Yes, I was going to talk about that eventually too.
It is a smaller percentage of the gays than usual, but still.
Yeah, they didn't kill both of them,
Yeah.
but like Cinta is a very minor character in the arc of the show, and I wonder how much of that was just which characters Tony Gilroy wanted to focus on, and how much of that was Disney saying, "Hey, don't focus on the gays."
I have so much to say about this. So I have 3 things I've written down that I really want to talk about from this. I don't want to interrupt your flow because I think it was all really good. First, I'll since we're on the gays topic, I'll go to that and then I'll hop back. But so this whole episode is so divisive, and I mean in my own house, I should say it was divisive, and it is most definitely a bury your gays, but it's also. They fucking actually did a full-on with tongue lesbian kiss, interracial too, in the dead center of the camera, and I appreciate that. They actually did it. And I know that that's a little bit of a meme, but also it's so much further than what Disney has been willing to do so far that I can't help but commend Tony Gilroy and the Gilroys and everybody who was involved in this production who his name is not as well known as Tony Gilroy, for actually doing that. Not only was it good, it was also sexy and raw and emotional.
Oh, yeah.
It is regrettable that there's a bury your gaze moment right afterwards. However, it is a gut punch. It's a legitimate gut punch. And as a result, I can't help but feel fucked up about it.
Yeah.
And I think that it serves its purpose in the narrative for that reason, which is like, hey, cool, you got to see your lesbian kiss, but remember, Empire is going to kill your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it might kill your girlfriend in a really stupid and painful way. And that is a trope. But guess what? It's a trope because this is what Empire does. That's what it feels like to me. And I hate that, but that drives my anger. I want to put my anger away from the TV tropism and towards just like, oh shit, like, yeah, hey, remember, like, we are burying our gays.
Yeah.
So that's where I come at this one, even though I understand why people would be mad at it on like a media thing, but I'm also just like, this is the show being Luthen for a moment, stepping into the shoes of Luthen and being like, oh, you don't like it? Go take care of some business that you have to go return some movies or whatever.
That makes sense.
That was the first thing I want to talk about. I want to also jump back onto something you said a little bit ago that I think is really relevant. So you talked about the Americans, like you said, there's this idea that like, oh, Americans will never do like a revolution. And while, you know, I would be lying if I said that I've never been like, yeah, fuck this. Everybody in America is a goddamn treatlerite and we're cooked, etc. Obviously, I think everybody's been there. I do genuinely think that like, oh, Americans would never rise up is imperial propaganda because like literally it requires you to basically see America as one whole nation when in reality, there are parts of America right now in open resistance. There are not just like entire states that are basically standing in opposition to the federal so-called whole, but that there are pockets of individuals, of groups, of people who are actively resisting, who are actively rebelling, who are actively leading a revolt against the powers that be right now as we speak. And some of them are Saw Gerreras, some of them are Maya Pei gangs.
A lot of them are Maya Pei gangs.
A lot of them.
There's a lot of Maya Pei gangs, but there are undeniably some Andors, some Luthens, some Mon Mothmas, some Cleas, Vels, Cintas out there right now as we speak. And I want people to remember that like America is a myth. It is a construct we have in our minds that can be useful in very certain contexts, but ultimately does not actually exist. There is no one universal whole in America that is united under a single national identity. The unity that we like feel between Americans is contextual and can be very important. But this idea of an invoked national whole that will never rise up is flatly wrong. It is an illusion, and it is ultimately propaganda that says, oh, well, everybody's got to be mad at the exact same time. No, they don't. They never have been, and they never will all be mad at the same time.
That was kind of the point of the first season of Andor.
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess I have one last thing. I know this has been like a long rant, but I wanted to build off of everything that you had said. One of the things I think is very artful and skilled in the presentation of a set of episodes is that we see a situation where essentially all of the rebel perspectives on Gorman are correct in their own way, and there is basically no other way to go. There's of course a lot of like frustration and pain and irony in that. You see the part where what's his name? Corlands? I can't remember the family name of that guy.
Rylands?
Rylands. There we go.
Oh, Carl Rylands, yeah.
Caro Rylands. There we go. I was mixing up the two names. Rylands, we see like the patriarch Rylands. He's like, oh, you're not much of a revolutionary, are you? The like, get your hackles up. You're just like, oh, I want to slap this guy so bad. But he's right. He's 100% right to tell Andor, like, what are we supposed to do? Like nothing? We die either way. Like he has seen this. And he's like, they're building an armory. The armory is going up. If we take action, there's at least something that could happen. But if we don't, then what? Then we just sit here and let them kill us? Like he's like, they're going to tighten the noose until we choke out? There's that perspective. Then there's Andor, and he's like correct to point out in everything that he says about them, he's correct. They are inexperienced. They're overeager. They're careless. They are idealistic in a very naive way.
It's terrible OPSEC.
Terrible. And then, of course, Luthen is also correct. He is right in saying, yeah, if this planet goes up, it would be a game changer. It would, and it does. They're literally all correct in a different part. And yet, like, what their proposed paths would be are in opposition to one another. Obviously, Luthen's endgame is, we know Gorman's done for. These people, we want these people to be as loud as possible so it makes a big fire. Obviously, Rylands doesn't want to be burned at the stake, but he also recognizes it's a real possibility no matter what. And you have Andor, who's thinking like a thief, quote unquote, which is he's thinking about survival. He's super empathetic and always is, in the sense that he's like, how do I make sure these people survive? I don't want them to lose their loved ones. I don't want them to suffer further. I love the fact that it's able to like articulate all of these positions and show like that the Empire is giving all of them no choice. In this particular case, you know, I can't help but feel like Luthen made the right call. But would I feel the same way if I was one of the people living on Gorman? Would I feel the same way if I was, Andor? Like, you know, I can see his perspective very well going, I don't want these people to die. You know, when I sit here and I look at another state in the United States where things are getting so horrible, my heart goes out to those people all the time. And I can't sit here and from my position where I am, I got plenty of problems in my life, but maybe not their problems. And I can't go, oh yeah, like, you know, hopefully it burns more so that they succeed. That's very hard to do. But you can sometimes assume the Luthen position and go, well, I hope it burns brightly because it's burning one way or another.
I should also point out that, you know, for people who think things are hopeless, it's like the military might of the United States means that, you know, any insurgency locally to, you know, stop the fascist takeover would be pointless. Like, consider the military might of the United States versus Vietnam and who won that war. Consider that that's the war that Star Wars was drawing inspiration from to show the lopsided empire versus the scrappy locals, but the empire is fighting for control and the locals are fighting for their lives. There is not an equality of drive there.
It makes a difference.
Another thing that makes a big difference is that there is a huge difference between destroying something that you don't really care about and trying to hold on to something that you desperately need. America cannot simply turn its military might on itself. Like, think about that. You can't just there are some people who can. You can encounter a leader who would literally destroy anything, a joker, so to say. You know what I mean? But in reality,
King of the Ashes.
But then the empire would be destroying itself. So an empire has to look out for itself, and it will do that predictably. An empire can't just turn its tanks and blow out its own organs. And if it does, it's hurting itself. There's this idea that people invoke the US military, rightfully. It is a machine of terror and fear and destruction. But the idea that, an all-out war on its own body is like an effective tactic. No, every shot that the American military unloads on itself is damaging itself. It brings its own self one step closer to defeat. And that is true about the Empire, as we see, outlined in Andor, and it's true in our world as well.
I was going to say earlier also that, you can't continue to rely on this whole narrative that Americans won't rebel because they're too comfortable if the middle class is shrinking and
it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. And people are less and less comfortable. It's I wonder sometimes if the anti-homeless initiatives are in some way a militaristic thought process, because what can a bunch of people with nothing left to lose accomplish? The more and more of them there are. You have to keep trashing their stuff and displacing them repeatedly.
Absolutely is.
Yeah.
Look at the history of the Great Depression, of the shanty towns.
Yeah.
Where the police would actively go and destroy shanty towns just because they knew if people sat there that revolutionary idea would foment, that people would start to organize. And of course they did anyway, because you can't destroy that for the same reason that I said before. But you're 100% right.
And I think that, again, that yes, there are some ways to read this show as saying that the personal relationship, I think, is portrayed as somewhat of a liability, or it will inevitably get in the way of some of your effectiveness to some degree. But that that is how we win in a way, is continuing to prioritize those things even when it's not effective, because what else are you fighting for? So just in terms of keeping everybody's spirits up, even though everything sucks, is every moment that you spend cuddled up with your cat or with your loved one is a win, because those moments are what we're fighting for. We're fighting to have the freedom to be with who we want to be with, and spend our time how we want, and free of oppression and free of coercion. So every moment that you get of that is very small win, but it is still a win.
Exactly. And I agree with you. And also, we see Andor presents us with a stark look at the contrast of what is the actual promise and delivery of Empire. And it is the life that we see in season 1 of Cyril Karn. He lives in a jail cell. He works in a jail. He eats jail food, all in the name of, but look at the prosperity of the Empire. And in reality, it's look at the prosperity of the Emperor. Look at the prosperity of maybe his inner circle by certain measures, but we all know how that turns out in the rest of Star Wars. And that's it. That's what it is. And that is what an empire does. That is what the pyramid does. You might not be the lowest block on the pyramid, maybe, but maybe there's not so much of a difference between block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4, block 5, block 6. You know what I mean? And, like you both mentioned about the middle class in America, we see that depicted in Andor as well. But of course, there's never been a time in recent memory that it's more stark than now, as we watch as literal imperial level insider trading and economic chaos that benefits the absolute top echelons leads to widespread economic distress. This is not just, poor people being affected. They're being affected the most, but these people who once considered themselves middle class and are now paying an unreal amount for basic needs.
I have one last thing. We're almost done, and I just want to get this last thing in there. The ladies on the TV look so much like the Capitol from the Hunger Games.
I had that in my notes, and I knew you were going to bring it up
good.
if I didn't. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's intentional.
Actually, they're a reference to the Star Wars Christmas special.
They might be. I don't know. I've never watched it.
Whip stir. There's
But it's
actually
so
a character that
Effie
looks exactly like
Trinket.
that.
It is. Yeah. I was like, I was looking. I'm just like, okay. So which one of those is Why am I blanking on the actress's name? Who played
Elizabeth
Effie Trinket?
Banks.
Elizabeth Banks. Why did I forget that? Yeah, I was like, okay, so which one of those is Elizabeth Banks?
Yeah.
It was just a little moment, but it's cute. It's like, yeah, that's Hunger Games. That's obviously Hunger Games.
In the Christmas special, if you haven't seen the Christmas special, please do yourself a favor and watch
And don't watch it.
No, please watch it. It is. We should do the Christmas special on here just so we can see the dregs. It is genuinely a painful watch. But there is a TV special in the Christmas special that has a character. I'm looking it up right now. Her name is Chef Gourmanda. And she has the same ostentatious clothing and hair, a very, drag energy. And she's doing a cooking show that all of the Wookiees are watching in their white picket fence treehouse, which is a very weird, again, the Christmas special, we just, it's a goof. It's all a goof. But, considering everything that happened on Kashyyyk, but whatever. But yeah, it's not really supposed to be the lore. But just for those who are out there this is just me showing you that it's not actually true that I am a curmudgeonly anti-nerd or whatever that it comes off of when we're talking about Marvel. It's actually I really love Star Wars and have seen even the stupidest shit that Star Wars has put before me.
ATSTs.
ATSTs. Listen, I've been like that at a few points in my life. Okay, I know. It's a guilty pleasure, but
all right. Any final thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I was hoping we could talk a little bit, maybe go over our time just a tiny bit to talk about Saw.
Okay. Let's finish them
because
off.
we didn't touch on Saw, and also I guess there's not as much with Mon Mothma this time.
She's mostly. We'll talk about her more next episode.
Yeah, she's got some stuff coming up.
I think her husband is cheating on her.
She's probably fine with that. I'm gonna say.
I don't think she wants to sleep with him. That's fine.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. So Saw Gerrera. I love Saw Gerrera. He's one of my favorite characters in the entirety of Star Wars. He has a through line. He's absolutely a badass and completely crazy, and also just so essential to the rebellion. Even though he doesn't even consider himself a part of the traditional rebellion structure, which is a big part of Rogue One, and it ties through to A New Hope. But he can't be denied. His importance can't be denied. Even though there are numerous characters who really don't like him, Mon Mothma being one of them, Bail Organa being another one who really doesn't like him. They all kind of see him as a little too extreme or whatever. But this guy has been at the Empire like a hound, just constantly, over and over and over again. And while, his methods are intolerable to some, intolerable maybe to many, the fact that he is so committed to his vision, and also that he's so capable of actually delivering on what he believes. We're going to talk about Rogue One. I can't remember. Did we say we were going to do
We're going to do
it.
Right?
Yeah, we're doing Rogue One. Okay.
We're doing Rogue One as a denouement after we finish Andor season 2.
Oh, thank goodness, because there's oh my God, it plugs in so good.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, after you watch season 2, go watch Rogue One again, and you're going to have a blast. It's so well done.
It's so boring. I tried and I couldn't finish it.
Oh, no.
What?
Andor is so exciting. And then you go watch this movie and you're like, oh my God. I don't know. It's so fucking slow.
Oh, wow.
Save some of those thoughts for when we
I'll save it. But that's my teaser. I'm going to bitch a lot.
Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay.
Saw is still cool in the movie, though. I'll give him that. He's still very cool.
So much cool shit in that movie. It's so cool. It's such a good movie. Oh, anyway, whatever. Fine.
This is like me listening to you talk about Captain America, right? I was like, are you kidding me?
Oh my God. Oh my God. We're going to rage out. Oh my God. Okay.
Hold on. You guys, you're going to have a fight when we meet up. Moss, you get Captain America's shield, and DemonMama, you get all the Rito you can huff.
Okay.
Whoa!
Perfect.
I won't even be able to feel the shield.
Oh my God. Anyway.
Here's the deal. Actually, I'll go one further. Let's fight in a Rito-filled arena.
Just a Rito chamber?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
You're both going to die. It'll just explode.
Yes.
Anyway, Saw Gerrera is sick, and I love him, and he kicks ass, and he's somebody who I would almost certainly butt heads with in real life, but I respect him for that fact. In this, I do think that his connection with Willman suffered from the seasonal compression problem, because I really do think that Willman, it's very clear that they intend that this is a pivotal moment for Willman and that his connection with Saw, that they have a shared line of thinking. I mean, after all, let's not forget, Willman is the creator of the pipe bomb that blew up 15 Imperial soldiers on otherwise peaceful.
He firebombs the Walmart.
He's got that Saw in him.
Yeah.
And there's something else I want to say about Saw this is some lore nerd stuff, but I appreciate that this season does it has so much love for all kinds of stuff that's been established in the Star Wars lore, some of which was to be discarded by the Disney or could have lived in this limbo state of maybe being discarded when Disney bought it and reset the universe or whatever bullshit. But Saw Gerrera in the lore of Star Wars, he basically was the Wookiees were basically you're a Wookiee. We consider you a Wookiee. Because he was one of the guys who was entrenched on Kashyyyk, fighting alongside the Wookiees against their own genocide. And he doesn't bring up Kashyyyk specifically, but he brings up being in a slave pit in a jungle. Mm-hmm. And you start to get this picture of him if you follow they sell it perfectly fine just in Andor, but if you know the other stuff about him, it's oh man, you really get where he's coming from.
I should counter one of your claims though, because you said that Saw's origins could have been discarded by Disney because Saw didn't show up until after Disney had bought Lucasfilm.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, his first appearance was in a 2012 episode of Clone Wars.
That was after Disney?
Disney bought Lucasfilm in 2012.
Well, okay, all right. Fair enough.
But they have also disregarded stuff that has been made canon since Disney acquired it. So, they're playing a little fast and loose with canon nowadays.
Okay, so I was wrong on that claim, but corrected. Thank you. Regardless, Saw is sick. Goes from a jungle slave pit to leading a entrenched long-term war against the Empire on one of the most inhospitable to the Empire planets, a planet that has been in open rebellion since they weren't the Empire yet, because the mistreatment of people on Kashyyyk happened before the Empire formally began. I really love him as a character, and I'm happy they gave him this moment. I do wish we would have got to see Willman running with the partisans for a while, getting that different perspective, because I do think it's implied in his story as he unfolds that this was important to him. I mean, after all, he ends up in literally the very beginning of next episode, he's going to end up showing up right on Yavin. So we know that his time with the partisans affected him.
Yeah.
But also, as far as just pure intense storytelling, the whole semi-hostage situation with Willman and the I don't even remember his name, the traitor guy.
Yeah, the other engineer guy.
The spy guy. It's so tense. They always do such a good job at selling the tension within Saw's group and how loyalty focused it is and how paranoid they all are.
Oh yeah.
But the payoff is that you get to see them take off into space with their sick ass X-Wings and
hell yeah.
What I described as, when I was watching the episode initially, as Saw Gerrera's RV with a cannon on top, home base mothership thing. It's so sick. It's just you can just imagine this guy I don't know, rolling into your town with a modern stolen cannon mounted to the top of some shitty Winnebago Warrior or something. I love it. So it's sick. Anyway, yeah, I wanted to say that about Saw, and I guess I only have one more thing I want to say. If we are okay with going just a tiny bit longer, I promise.
Just a tiny bit longer, but last thing,
a tiny bit. But I wanted to give some room to Clea, because her role in these episodes is increasing but small, and we get to see her think on her feet and it's a microcosm of her approach. We see her improvise like crazy when she's trying to retrieve the bug from Davis Skulden's art collection. And we get to see how quick she can think on her feet, but also we see her literally rip her hand apart to make sure that she can cover their ass. Like, it's not the same type of sacrifice that we see from all the other characters, but it is the visual language showing that, like, she can push through extreme physical pain and social pressure.
She has an intensity about her, and like, she was not a significant character in the first season. She had like maybe one prominent scene where she's like, it was mostly just stuff between her and Vel. But Tony Gilroy saw just what Elizabeth Dellal brought to that role and was like, oh, I got to make her a bigger role this season. So we get to see that. But also, this is like one of Elizabeth Dellal's first acting roles, which is crazy. Like,
amazing.
Keep an eye out for her. She's going to do great things,
Oh, yes.
or she's going to kill a bunch of people. Those are the only two options.
Maybe both. Maybe both.
Yeah. If there's any character in this show that I'm like, I aspire to be like that character, it's Clea, without question. I love her so much.
That makes sense. That checks.
That checks out. Well, good. I'm internally consistent.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, and I don't mean that as an insult at all. I hope you don't take it that way. I mean that in a real way. It makes sense why you would share such a affinity. I think Clea is awesome, and this is no spoilies for the future, but this is the beginning of a increasing of her role, and I love that. And I think that this is where we start to really see inside her perspective, and also her just doing a magnificent job at trying to deal with Luthen's increasing instability.
Yeah.
Are you done? Like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. That's how
she's
I
like,
feel
get
about
your
Luthen.
shit together, man.
Yeah.
Luthen, you're always telling everybody else to get their shit together. Get your shit together.
I think she's the one, like, Luthen will have to resort a lot to like threats or just like talking out both sides of his mouth to get people to do what he wants. I think all Clea has to do is look at you in that way and use that intense tone of voice, and you're just like, yes, mommy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. I understand. Yes, you were right. I will.
For sure.
like Wani is just constantly like, this is crazy, and she's like, you will fucking do what I tell you, and he's like, yes, you were correct.
This is it's do or die. She's basically like, if I go down, you're going down too. Right now, everyone's gonna die here. Yes, it's suicide or it's success, and it's such a well structured moment to communicate her commitment in the moment, like a totally different set of stakes, but equally as dangerous, with literally one of the most evil guys in the room who could easily kill everyone there.
Yeah.
I do love that joke.
I was going to say,
we should have killed Krennic while we were up there, and then they left.
That's the spirit. Yeah, it's cute. It's just like, okay, we can breathe a little easier today now.
If only, God.
Yeah.
If only. Anyway, I just wanted to give a little time to Clea, and I know we're going to get to give more time to her. But oh my God, it's this season. Looking back on this season, the way they handle Clea, her relationship to the rebellion, and her relationship to Luthen is so good, and I'm very excited to talk about it more as we get further on. Anyway, I don't have anything else to say. I extinguished it all.
Cool.
Well, okay. Thank you all for joining us for this one. Next week, we will be doing, I don't know, a fun, lighthearted romp into the Gorman genocide.
Yeah.
Just bring your popcorn. So until then, I've been Gayfesh.
I'm Moss.
And I'm DemonMama.
And we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Later.